Hello, everyone, and welcome to our December System Admin webinar. My name is Samantha Perry, and leading the way today is going to be Michelle Domino for our webinar today on using the automated approval module. Today's webinar, we are going to cover the different uses of the approval module in terms of the different rules and triggers available to you. We will set approval plans for users, and so you can have one or more approval plans based on the size of your team. We'll also talk about some of the out-of-the-box approval features that don't require the approval module, like thresholds and not allowing users to edit certain things. And we are going to be able to show today, coming very, very soon, we are about to release version 6.11, which will have the approval module in QuoteAnywhere, and so we hope to show you that today in our quality assurance environment. So with that being said, I will pass the baton to Michelle, and she will lead us through the instruction today.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for joining, everybody. As you can see, I'm sure everybody can see my screen here. I am actually logged into WeEstimate. For those of you that are new to approvals, I'll actually be going through creating a very simple approval plan first, so you can see it in action. And then as I go through creating that simple plan, I'll actually go through the little bits of logic that are involved with creating more complex approvals, as well as the different types of data that can trigger approvals. And as Sam said, there's also those features that are out of the box, such as the thresholds. I will also show that to you. So the first thing what we want to do is we'll start off with configuring an actual approval plan. I do recommend when you are thinking about setting up an approval plan that you create a matrix for yourself. So you want to understand what triggers will require approvals, like what you want to plan out in your head if there's a GPM that will require approval, a sale price, or a job type or a system type that would require approval. And then actually build it within the system, because after you build it in the system and you start to think it through, sometimes it can get a little confusing. So the first place to go here is you go into Tools, System Configuration, and within the system configuration, there is a tab called Approval Systems. So you'll note here there is pre-approvals and post-approvals. Keeping in mind, pre-approvals are pre-sale approvals that you want to set. So for instance, if there's any dollar values that need to be checked on, or any GPM, again, that you want to check on, while post-approvals would be best utilized when your accounting team, for instance, needs to have certain documents that are included prior to actually doing an accounting export, things like that. So first of all, here we'll start off with creating a new pre-approval plan. So I'll go in here and I'll click New. And I would then be able to choose whether it's a pre or post approval. Again, in this case, it would be a pre-approval. And I'm going to just name it Simple Plan. And from within here, I'll then be able to put in some exceptions as well as any parameters that I want to allow for this plan. Starting off with this left pane here, I'm able to add in groups here that would always approve for certain jobs, or for specific people or specific offices or regions. If there is a group in here, regardless of what job it is, if it's assigned to someone, an office or a region, it's going to require that approval for your job. So just be very careful when you are creating approval systems. On the right-hand side here, you have the hierarchy system. It could either be hierarchy system or you turn off the approval plan completely. If it is set to off, it will not trigger an approval for the job, even if it's assigned. So also be cognizant of that. And then after that, here are the check boxes that would allow for certain features slash functionalities of the job to either be allowed or not. So for instance, allowing the customer edit during or after the approval. So for instance, if I said WeSuite as the customer, but then it's actually WeSuite, comma LLC. By checking this off, that will allow the team member to edit that customer information. Allowing email and allowing print to and export will allow that will allow a user to send out the proposal or contract to a customer. We also want to be very careful with those. If you have documents and allow the users to export or email, you have to keep in mind that whatever pricing is there, if it has not been approved, this could be opening yourselves for some problems. Then estimates are read only during the approval. That would be that the estimate is basically locked down, and only the approver can make edits to the estimate. So, for instance, if they wanted to delete a part or add a quantity, add some more labor, no one is able to edit it if this is checked. But if it's unchecked, only the salesperson or job owner can't edit it, but the approver can. These two ignore checkboxes here. Depending on the kind of job, it will completely bypass the approval if any of these are checked off, if it falls under that parameter. This insert all exceptions at once, I'll come back to that, as well as this process exceptions first. Only salesperson can exit the process, the approval process. That means that if I go into a job and I'm an approver, I cannot exit the approval process for them. I would actually have to reject it for the salesperson or the job owner to then be able to complete their changes that need to happen. Parts approval as well as threshold violation. Those are all based off of specific parts. And the threshold is for specific thresholds that are set up for the user. Salesperson must start approval is a similar functionality as them being the only one to exit the approval. And then the last checkbox here is the use of job types. For those of you that are using the Sedona integration, if you use job types, your Sedona can show up here. For those of you that are using job types that are just in WeSuite, all of those job types would show up here. And if by checking that off, it allows for the job that has that specific job type assigned to require approval versus all jobs. So moving on from here, does anybody have any questions about this, about the options before I move forward? And if you do, feel free to send it in the chat.
It looks good right
Sorry,
now,
Sam?
Michelle.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right, so the next thing here, what we're going to go through is the exceptions. I think this is really a bulk of the approval systems, the functionality. So the first thing I want to make sure is I want to process exceptions first, because I want to make sure that whatever triggers I put in here are actually evaluated prior to a job needing approval, right? So there are different types of data that exceptions can be triggered on. As you can see here, we have the margin, sell price, the RCM, the type of contract, a job type, a system type, sale type, a specific RMR, dollar value, or the lease deposit, even, which is fairly new. So lease deposit and RCM are fairly new items. So for this simple plan, what I want to do is I want to just trigger if the amount that I sell is greater than $1,000, and I would like for my sales managers in New Jersey to be the approvers for that, right? You'll also notice here, so it puts in a line, and we have the logic here that automatically puts and. Okay. When you are finished completing an approval exception, you want to make sure at the very last exception that you mark it with with the logic end. You'll notice here again, when I made that end, everything grayed out over here. Whereas if I kept it as and or, now I can add different rules. The logic also is very important because if I, let's say, required another group outside of the sales managers NJ in this example, that let's say there was another layer or another group that needed to do some approval, I would need to use the logic and or. Okay, and the reason why I would need to do that is because the way our approval systems in 610 have been developed is we keep the groups together so we could have sales managers, if we have multiple exceptions where the sales managers get triggered to approve, we would group them together. And then if there's another layer of people to approve, we would have to use and or, so then it could end the evaluation of requiring approval from the sales manager and then go to the next grouping of people. So just as an example, so I'm going to say or here just so I can give you an example. If I have a GPM of less than 10%, it's also going to require that rule. And if I do and or, and then I'm going to say system type equals fire, we'll need, okay, this is a little bug there. All right, so this is how, this is what I was trying to explain here. So if the sale price is greater than $1,000 or the GP is less than 10%, then it would require approval by the sales managers in New Jersey. If the system type, on the other hand, is fire, then it would require executive management to also be part of that approval, um, that approval exceptions list. Before I move on to anything else, does anybody have any questions about the logic? I know it can be a little bit confusing at times, but I want to make sure that I'm clear on and answering any questions that anybody might have.
I think it looks good right now, but
All right,
I will
awesome.
add, often we will work with you. So if you do want to go through, hey, these are things that trigger approval in our organization right now, but it's this way when this happens or that way when that happens, we will work with you on the best way to configure this and can assist in setting up the different plans just to make sure nothing falls through the cracks there. So
Absolutely. And again, just keeping in mind, this logic that I'm actually explaining is for those of you that are already on version 610, which is the latest release that we have out there. If you have any versions prior, so 6.9 and earlier, uh, there is a little bit different logic in the code. So it is best to get you updated to the latest release so you have the latest and greatest functionality. All right, so just moving forward here, the next thing, oh, sorry, I just got disconnected. I apologize for that. I apologize all for that. Not sure what happened there. All right. So the next thing, so moving forward here, so after we've configured our approval plan, the next thing we want to do is now we want to assign it to someone. Okay, so we can assign it to a user, or we could assign it to a region, or even an office, a specific office. So if you have specific regions that maybe you've bunched everybody together in one region, and that's for residential jobs, or another region for commercial, and you wanted to separate it that way, or down to the actual physical location of an office, and maybe there's specific approvers for that office and they don't approve for others. You also want to look at that. That's one of those things you want to evaluate. To assign it per region, you just highlight the region, hit edit, and you have your approval systems that you could select here. And for the office, all you need to do is select the region that you want to, that has the office in it, and just scroll over to the right. And you'll see here there's this column called pre-approval system. Okay, so you also have the ability for post-approval system. One thing to note, and I apologize, I kind of skipped through that. Approval systems and approval systems configuration, um, it can only be configured with a job type, or it's really an all or nothing kind of post approval system. It's not as dynamic as a pre-approval setup. Um, and then the other place that you can assign is to the user, which I've seen in my experience has been more common. So what I'll do here, I could search for the user. I'm going to just assign myself one. Okay, and I click edit. And under the approvals tab, I will then select my simple plan. Oh, there's a little bit of a refresh here. I actually have to close out of the system configuration so it refreshes my list. Okay, go to my approvals tab, and it's my simple plan. It's right here at the bottom. You will notice here the list of approval systems are in the order in which you added them. So the oldest would be at the very top. All right. So I go into simple plan, and I can click save. But while I'm here, I do want to mention there's office priority and region priority checkboxes here. And the purpose of those is to, let's say you do utilize a region or office approval system. What it allows you to do is, if this user, John Appleseed, is able to quote outside of his office or region, depending on which checkbox is selected, it's going to base the approval off of the office or region. And then if there's no approval system that's assigned to that office or region, it would then default to use the user-based approval system. I haven't seen this too often, but I have seen it, and it seems to really be helpful, especially when you're going through different approval systems that, let's say, require, again, a different region. Let's say you have a New York region and a Florida region, and the Florida approvers can only approve Florida jobs. So, but if I'm a user that can quote in different regions, and I quote a Florida region, that Florida approver will get the trigger to approve those jobs. What's nice about that too is whoever the approver is in those regions or that office, it they're able to foresee certain things that they've come across within their area, or if there's any laws that need to be abided by. That can be very helpful as well. So we have that, and I can click save here. Now, the other piece to the approval that we had, which was like a threshold violation only, is over here. Under thresholds, we can set up certain thresholds to say, all right, if there's an upper estimate value of $1 million, that it would require approval. Same thing with a lower dollar amount, lower and higher GPs. And then there's also these items here, these item thresholds. If you have any data, so this area here is based off of the out of the box approval or the out of the box threshold that Samantha had mentioned in the beginning. If there are any upper or lower thresholds that are set here, what will actually happen is the user will just get triggered with a pop-up that says, hey, you can't bring down this labor um, down to 10%. You could only bring it down to 20%, for instance. So it's not an approval, but it is a pop-up to at least stop the user from moving forward with what they're trying to do. Okay. So what I'll do now is I will move forward into showing you what this simple plan is that I assigned, what it would look like. Before I move forward to that, does anybody have any questions on this? Like creating an approval plan and assigning it to a user. All right. Okay. All right. So now there was one other piece before I actually move forward. Within this simple plan, I had groups that required that were required to approve for my jobs. You'll have to make sure there's a few things that you need to make sure of. You have to make sure that you have people approving for me. So for instance, if I look for Joe here, if Joe is an approver for me, you have to make sure that I have to make sure that Joe is part of the group that can approve for me, or groups. And then I also have to make sure that they're part of these approval groups. And then the last piece is under People Manager. I also have to make sure that Joe is able to be an approver for me here. And if I want Joe to get emails that there's something to approve, that this approval emails is selected. All right. If this isn't selected, or these aren't selected under approvals, there's the list is going to be empty in the approvals tab of the estimate, and Joe will also not get any notification or know that there's anything to approve. All right. So moving forward here, I'll create a job or open up a job here. All right, and you'll notice here, this job is $18,000. So a pre-approval is required for me. So what I'll do here is the salesperson, first of all, is going to get that flag. If the approval isn't required, this flag will not show up, right? It won't be red. And the approvals tab will not show up to begin the process, all right? So I'll then go into the approval tab. I click begin approval process. Hi, Joe, please approve. And you'll see that the pre-approval was started. It then closes automatically. And you'll see here, right, like as the salesperson or the user that submits the approval, the job for approval, it will have a queue for that person in here that says that they initialized the approval. And if I go in here and I open up the job again, we'll also be able to see the approver, whoever can approve, right? So I have Joe and Johnny who can both approve for my job. So now I'm gonna actually log in as Joe. I hope I got that right. Oh, here we are. Nice. Okay, so now if I go as Joe, I could see here, here's my queue that I can look at. Samantha probably got an email as well, just because it was her email that's associated to this job or to this user. And I'll go in here and I click approved. And the estimate's been approved. If I open the last job, you'll notice up here, all of the ribbons here are in green, so that means it's been fully approved. And everything is now read-only. So the application it then makes everything locked down. So you see, I can't really click on anything. I can't add quantity. I can't change sales descriptions. If the salesperson then comes back and says, hey, I need to add this part, or I need to take out a quantity, they will then need to exit the approval process. All right, and then have to start from the beginning and go through restart the approval process. Does anybody have any questions on that, on the pre-approvals? No?
No, looks good.
All right, awesome. So now that was the pre-approvals. With post-approvals, there's a little different, the behavior's a little different. So I'm gonna assign a post-approval to my user. And let me just make sure that I look at, okay, so here we go. Post-approval is great. And let me go back to my user and assign that post-approval. Okay, so let me open up this job once more. So with post approvals, again, a little bit of a different behavior. We'll notice here that, I think it was based off of job types. I didn't pick a great one. All right. So let's try that one more time. All right, so post-approval, if I have a post-approval assigned, you'll notice here at the bottom, we have post-approval required, but there's a different tab here called post-approvals. And when I begin the post-approval, it's going to ask me which quote is the quote-unquote winning quote. And the reason why it's asking for that is because once it's been post-approved, it'll then actually win the whole job. And then for those of you that have that are connected to an accounting, it would then trigger into your queue to do an accounting export from WeSuite. So I'll go in here, I click OK. And typically you want to make sure that you create a new quote package and flag it as sent, just so you can make sure that you have revisions of a job depending on, let's say, again, you approved one and then the salesperson came back and you guys went back and forth. You just want to make sure that you have that kind of data in your history. All right, so it creates a new document. This is my winning quote with the 18,475. And I just click continue. And please post approve. And again, Samantha probably got an email that something needs to be post approved. So I'm now going to log in as Joe, who is, again, an approver for John. Oops. All right. So looks like Tam, you don't have the quotes to post approve. All right, so now we have this post approval in Joe's queue. And here, again, you say it's been approved. Good, this is one. And now it's going to go through this post-approval process. For those of you that are using Sedona integration with the Sedona API documents, what it's doing in the background is it's taking a PDF of your summary reports and your proposal, and it is inserting it into the supporting documents folder that's associated to the estimate. And then with that post approval, you are able to backdate the winning job date, or it could be the current date. This is dependent on a setting, so if you want to have the ability to backdate it, just let us know, and there's a setting we need to switch for you. And so I click continue, and it'll close out to be able to flag the job as one, as you guys have all seen. And if I reopen that estimate just to see, you'll notice here the estimate is now one, and you'll also notice this accounting tab is now available to start the accounting export out of WeEstimate. All right. Does anybody have any questions on the approval systems that exist in WeEstimate, creating a pre-approval, creating a post-approval, or just any questions in general about approvals?
One question came in, allowing edit during / after the option is checked, but unable to change documents once in approval. I'm not quite understanding the question from you, Dario, on whether or not do you want them to be able to edit something, or you're confirming something about the way the functionality is now? Question reads, allow edit during / after option is checked, but unable to change documents once in approval.
So this is actually, so this allow is customer edit only. So it has not, you're not able to make changes to the document when you're doing approval.
But you can change a customer's name.
You can like update the customer's name. Like, let's
Okay.
say again, it's like Samantha Perry, but then it's actually Samantha Perry LLC. It would be Samantha, like you could change that, but it's very specific to the customer name.
Okay.
You're not able
Yeah,
to
it
make
sounds
changes
like
elsewhere.
they want to be able to change the document once the job's in approval, but in order to do that, you would have to take the job out of approval, make your document changes, and then resubmit it for an approval.
That's correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, that looks like that's it for right now.
All right, awesome. So the next thing that I'm actually going to show you is really like Sam mentioned, it's coming soon, very soon, which is approvals in QuoteAnywhere. So I'm going to just log in right here, and let me just make sure, Sam, you're seeing my screen. And I
Yes.
apologize to all of you guys. This is in my Chrome is in dark mode, so I'm hoping that everybody can see everything well here. So I'm gonna log in as this user. Um, and so you're actually not just getting a sneak peek of approvals, but you're also getting the sneak peek of seeing system configuration in QuoteAnywhere. So from in here, very similar to WeEstimate, under system configuration, we have users, regions, and offices, groups, approval systems. And so what I'll do is I'm going to just jump straight to approval systems. And it's going to work. It's working similarly in terms of you have your pre-approval and your post-approval. And then you also, when you're creating a new approval system, you actually get to toggle this first instead of the pop-up coming up for you. So since I'm toggled onto the pre-approval system, I just go in here, new approval system, and again, you'll notice it's already highlighted, new simple plan. And then again, I want to do it as hierarchy. And it's not for threshold violation only. So I want to make sure that that is toggled off. And then when I create, then I'll be able to add some approval exceptions here. So, all right, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. So now I have my approval options. So under approval options, these are similar to the checkboxes, or this is the same as the checkboxes that you saw on the right-hand side. I'll just move that over. That is equivalent to this here. All right. And then the regional setup is also, which has to do with the ability to override approvals, is similar or is the same as this tab over here. Okay. And when I go back, now I have my exceptions. So under exceptions, which again, similar to our exceptions tab here, I can add my rules and the same rules apply, right? So if my exception type is GPM, okay, and then we have your operators, which is the less than or equal to, greater than, and so on. So if I say it's less than and my GPM is less than 15%, then it requires approval by, let's see here, sales, right? And then I say or, right? If we would then create this, oops. See, like if since I selected or, I have the ability to add another one. And I want, if the sales price is greater than 5,000, then it requires approval from sales. And then I say and or, because now I want to I need to trigger the new group that I want to require to sign or to approve, apologies. So if I say the sale price is greater than 1 million, right? Then let's say we want the executive management to sign off on that. Oh, too many zeros. There you go. All right, and I want it to end at this, right? So I click create. And so now we have this approval plan, that very simple approval plan that we have set up. There is a new feature that's very specific to QuoteAnywhere, though. They have approval groups. So approval groups, there's a little bit of a setup where it comes to this approval groups, and it actually has to do with the way a group becomes a threshold group or a labor rights group. So it's a new feature that we've introduced. It does not exist in WeEstimate, only because we have these different these different types here. We have access and approval groups. So that's how it's set up. So it just looks a little different, but it still functions the same here. Does anybody have any questions on the setup in QuoteAnywhere?
No, it's looking good. And I do know this is a combo of some people who are using QuoteAnywhere today and, really looking forward to starting to use it. And then others who, have yet to implement QuoteAnywhere, but really, I know a lot of you are waiting for the approval module to make its way to QuoteAnywhere. So this is really great. And, for anyone who is using QuoteAnywhere now, when we upgrade you to 6.11, we'll be able to um, kind of work with you on possibly adding the approval module and what are all the different rules that are in place. And then for those of you that have been on WeEstimate for a long time and already have plenty of approval plans set up, you'll be able to spin up a new, really a kind of mobile version of WeEstimate at this point is QuoteAnywhere. We're making huge headway on converting all of our feature set from WeEstimate into the QuoteAnywhere web-based client. And so, you'll be able to still use the same rules and be able to edit plans. You, of course, can still edit the plans from WeEstimate if you want, but then your users will be able to submit jobs for approval in QuoteAnywhere. Because I know some of you are working with different set of rules while their team is using QuoteAnywhere versus people getting quotes out in WeEstimate. So it should bridge that gap so everyone can be on kind of the same plan going forward. And we really hope that you guys will take this version into your sandbox and start playing with it.
All right, thanks, Sam. So I just wanted to do one last thing just so you guys see what it looks like. So again, we have to make sure that we assign the plan to the user. So if I go in here and I do my simple plan, I click save. And again, it looks a little different, but it still functions the same way. Think of these little box blocks as the different subtabs in the user setup. So from here, I'm going to go to create a project now. So if I go in here, just going to do a new project. All right, and a new system. And commercial here. All right, so here's my new estimate. I go in here, and what I'll do is, let me make sure that I assign my addresses and my main contact. And I'm going to go into my estimate and I will, oops, wrong folder. And what I'll do is I'll just add some parts here. All right, so let's do 300 cards. Reader. Oh, oops. I don't think we'll need 300 card readers, but I think that'll bring us over the top here where we'll need something. Okay, so we have that. And so what'll end up happening, so you see right now, because I have approval assigned, you see how like it didn't trigger anything yet. So my approval is not required. I don't have any approvals required. So let me see here if I can add more here. And I think I need to try to get to $1 million if that's the case. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to get to $1 million. Let me just double check my rules here because maybe I okay, we have this. sell price is greater than 5,000. Okay, so all right, let's just add somebody here. Okay, let me just go back to my estimates. And so now if my job requires approval, it should, you see it has a little dot here that comes up because it required an approval. So now if I go in here, I have my approval. So I, as the owner, by clicking approve here, it's the same as me inserting the job for approval. So I'll go in here and I have my little note similar to that pop-up. Okay. And then from here, then you'll see here, like, there's no approvers assigned here, but you see Jane is an approver for the sales group. So what we can do is we can go to Jane's user and then she'll be able to see that she is, that she has something to approve. All right. So let me just see if I can log in as Jane. And I also realize I saw what I did wrong here. What I missed is I missed checking off the evaluation, to for different for the setup here. Let's see. All right, so let's do this one more time here. Okay, cancel. Let's try one more time, sorry. And continue. And let's make sure Jane is part of that group. Okay, so now Jane will get this email and I'm going to log in as Jane. Out. I just want you guys to see what the approval will, the approver would see. All right, so they would get an email, and right now this is something that that we're working on, is to now look. You're going to see the email come through that looks like your typical approval email. So you would then have to, search for the estimate number. And when you're able to open it up, you'll be able to approve from within QuoteAnywhere. So I go in here, go to the sales status, approval, and I can hit approve. Okay. With this, also keep in mind, you can also do approvals by email. So we could configure that for you. So just let us know if that's something you need some assistance with. All right. Any questions so far, or anything else that you guys have any questions about with regards to approvals in WeEstimate or QuoteAnywhere, pre-approval or post-approval?
No more questions, but I did want to mention one of our kind of prior releases, I believe it was 610, we released the ability to do approval by email as well. So for anyone who wants to learn more about that, that email that goes out now that says like Samantha needs an approval and it has a quick summary of what is in that job, we have enhanced that to be kind of a separate mechanism now. Yeah, so that email Michelle's showing now, it would be similar. An email would still go out and say a job needs an approval, and but you could approve it from the email right then and there if you wanted, and say, "Yep, I'm going to just approve this," or you could download the job summary report if you want to see that. But that way, you don't actually have to log into WeSuite to do the job approval. Am I missing anything there, Michelle, or pretty
It
straightforward?
would actually be, it would be a link that will bring you to a site that you can then approve from, not specifically from within the
Okay, yeah.
email where you could click a button, but you're going to click a link and you won't actually have to go into Quote Anywhere or WeEstimate to search for the job. The link would just lead you right to where you can say approved or rejected.
Yeah, and so that, was really a request from a lot of our clients that, their approvers are out on the road and they didn't, they'd have to come back to the office to open up WeEstimate in order to approve a job. So if you would like to convert to that mechanism, let us know, and we could always switch to that. You, of course, can still do it the regular way, but if you did want to just click a link in the email and approve the job without having to log into the WeSuite applications, you'll be able to do that. And then once 611 is ready to be released to our whole client base, you should see email notifications of that, and then we can get it into Sandbox and start working with you all on that upgrade.
Yep. Awesome. And again, just big asterisk starred there, as Sam mentioned, this is a feature, this email approval email feature and functionality is available in 610. So for those of you that are on older versions, you will need to get updated. So just
Yep.
something to keep in mind.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. To kind of close us out, I do want to do a couple housekeeping items. This webinar will be put on our website probably midday tomorrow, and so you can look back on that. We do have our user webinar next week, December 17th, on creating prospecting plans. So if you or your sales team, sales manager wants to you're either using the prospecting module now or thinking about using it and want to set prospecting goals for 2025, definitely join that. So this is the 17th at 1 Eastern. And then our next admin webinar is going to be January 14th. And that is going to be about the We Opportunity user rights, group rights, permissions, things like that. So definitely register for that. You'll start seeing email links to register for that in a couple weeks' time. All right. Thank you all for your time today and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you all.